Starting now.
Cool.
All right, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys? Well, you. I mean, everyone. I'll talk to once they see the
Right.
video. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Uh, it is so interesting. I don't
Yeah.
really know how to put it. You know, I think humans are very good at taking things and putting things into a box, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what box to put this in yet.
It's a confusing one. We've never dealt with anything like this. We
Right.
can't interact with other people. Like,
Right.
what? You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
So the nighttime conversations have been very healthy in terms of our relationship.
Yeah.
And the relationship that we are, as, I guess, aspiring for to have with our children, and that type thing. But the emotional connection that
Yeah.
I relied on so much from the gym that
Yeah.
I did not realize. You know, you don't realize like those face to face interactions, those high fives, those great jobs, those things are, I don't know, man. It's just amazing what they do for our
Yeah.
brain, and I know it's all connected too. So, yeah. So we're managing, and we've gone remote, and people still they appreciate that. Our
Yeah.
folks really appreciate that, and people have been super supportive uh, in that respect. But I know also too, like everybody's kind of trying to just take it one day at a time and just figure out what the next steps are and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's unpredictable. I think we've seen a lot of like the initial like I don't want to say panic, but like
Right.
uncertainty. Because a lot of people losing jobs, a lot of people can't get to the stores, a lot of people can't work out. Like no one knows what to do. And working out and eating well is the last thing people are worried about, sometimes. So
Yeah.
they just want to survive and be safe.
Yeah. And kind of on that note, I just got off the phone with a guy who
Mm.
works for a company that supplies cleaning services and cleaning supplies. And we were just kind of talking about what we need to do moving forward. And essentially, what it boils down to is there's nothing that they've proven that is actually able to kill the virus.
Yeah.
People are saying that they have things in terms of sanitary efforts and all this good stuff, but nothing that they haven't shown anything that's actually,
Just have to wait. Yeah.
yeah. So, anyways, the big thing, I obviously got a lot of things I want to talk about with you today. What are the things that your folks are telling you? What are people struggling with that you're hearing and seeing and talking about?
I mean, staying out of the kitchen,
Yeah.
movement, stress eating, alcohol, um, like trying to be perfect with macros when they can't find the foods that they need. And,
Yep.
there's solutions for all this stuff, you know. So where
So
do you want to begin?
yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the kitchen and let's talk about alcohol. I have a very interesting experience with alcohol in a former life. So I think I can add some to that in terms of the way that maybe people can reframe it just a little bit. But let's talk
The
about
thing that I'm
talk
seeing
about
a lot now is people kind of use, and I'm just going to say the word excuse. People use the excuse of not being able to get the food they want for getting the food they really want. So, for example, if someone says, "Well, I couldn't get chicken," and then they come home with like Doritos and potato chips and cookies and wine, it's like, well, that's not the same. Like we have to find an alternative, and that a lot of that is like it's just a really quick emotional response. It's like crap, crap, crap. I can't get the chicken. This will make me feel better, and it does. Like it does make us feel better. So when we stress eat and when we stress buy, there is this like inherent solution. Like this stuff does make us feel better. It doesn't last, as we know, but if you're stressed out and you eat something that you really enjoy, you're going to feel a little bit better. And I think we don't really do ourselves any favors when we bring that stuff into our world. And I'm very, I mean, we've known each other for years now. I'm very open to eating whatever you want as long as you can manage it and it keeps you in the right energy balance. But a lot of people are bringing too many opportunities into their world where if they just had one, maybe they probably wouldn't stress eat as much. And stress eating is an interesting thing because most people aren't very hungry when they're stressed.
Correct.
Their body kind of shuts down a little bit, but we know those foods make us feel good, so we go to the foods. It's not about hunger. We know that. It's just about feeling a little bit better. And that's where we have to make smart decisions about what comes into our food environment.
Okay, so you got me thinking about something that I heard, and I don't remember where I heard this, but have you ever heard like how much of me is me, and then how much of me is me choosing to be me?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I think this is where people get caught in the middle of that, right? They're like, and so how do we help people navigate that? How do we help?
I think for one, it's first we have to think about what we really want. And a lot of people want two things at once. They want results and they want the food. And it's kind of like wanting to go swimming, but not wanting to get wet. And it's impossible. You can't always do those things, or you can't ever do those things at the same time. So when people keep saying, I can't stop eating these things, and I say, well, why do you keep buying them? Well, because I think I can manage them. Well, it's showing that you can't. So let's try to not bring them in. And that's where we have to identify as a person, as a decision maker ourselves, is what person do you want to be? Do you want to be the person that's getting results and make it easier for yourself? Or do you want to be the person that kind of wants results, but also wants the cookies and the snacks and all those things? So you have to know, like, even, I mean, not now, but when you go out to eat, you can get the chicken breast and the broccoli and the lean steak and things, but you have to want to do that. And if people don't want to say no to snacks, they're always going to jump into them. I mean, it's okay, but if you don't want that, then you have to set yourself up for it.
Okay, so one of the things that Natalie and I were talking about, because she wanted to know what I was going to talk to you about this morning. Yeah. So one of the things that comes up a lot, which is the difference in males and females, right? And the biology of that. And we started talking about the dopamine response that we get whenever we consume food. Right? And how you even said it a while ago, you're like, when we eat something, it makes us feel better, especially in the short term. Yep. But then you have the remorse, or is that what it is? Like buyer's remorse. Maybe eater's remorse, whatever, consumer's remorse. So for a female that, especially like Natalie, I'll use Natalie as a perfect example, that lives with 3 males, 2 little boys, and then 1 grown boy, that we really get to eat anything that we want, right? And so how do you coach someone like that? What is it? Are you still talking about identifying these behaviors and making sure they're aligned with the goal and the vision? I mean, same
this requires conversation, and it requires some sacrifice from the other side, which is the family, you guys. So a lot of times, especially like the smaller women that can't get away with eating as much food as the bigger guys, the guys are like, well, it's for me, just don't eat it. And it's not that simple. There's so many like natural cues driving them to the food, and you can get away with it, she can't. So a good thing as a partner would be try not to invite that into her world if possible.
Correct.
And that's kind of what happens with a lot of moms and the kids. They're like, well, the food is for my kids. Well, yeah, I get it, but your kid has to be okay with helping you out too. So
100%. And so one of the resolutions that we come to last night was, because I was asking her, how can I help mitigate and be a part of the solution and not part of the problem? Yeah. And she said, well, if I had my cucumbers and my peppers already cut up and in a bowl, then I could just go dip them out and put them in a bowl. I was like, bam, that's what we'll do in.
Right.
And so that becomes, because you said it perfect, right? It's a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, and I think that's the other thing too. So one of the words that I wrote down for this morning is conflict resolution. Do you talk about that much? Because it sounds like this is where we're going, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I might not categorize it like that, but same thing. Like, what is the conflict? How are you going to overcome it? Is it the snacks getting into the house because someone else wants them? Is it that someone wants dinner that doesn't fit for your plan? How are you going to resolve this conflict? And it usually is like, it's just people don't want to talk. They don't want to have the conflict, so they accept the problem from it. And that's where we have to, you almost become like, this is so outside of nutrition stuff, right? It's just like,
absolutely.
go talk to them, you know? Like, you have to have that conversation.
Dude, it's so interesting because so I've had the opportunity to I've expanded my coaching skill set, I guess, and so I'm doing some business consulting, and so one of the things that kind of comes up, which is the conflict resolution part, which is how do you handle conflict when it comes up? Do you call another coworker? And this we can bring this back full circle, right? So do you call another coworker and complain to that coworker about your boss, or do you use it as a learning and a teaching and a coaching moment and go to your boss and say, hey, I've got this issue. How can we handle this, right? So like if you have that person, or if you are that person that handles conflict in that way, you're always going to handle it that way. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, that's how most people don't go to the source and have the conversation. Most people will just talk to their coworkers about their boss, and it's like, I'll tell my team, like, come talk to me.
Please.
Because a lot of times, like, if you guys are talking about something, it might not be real, it might not be true, it might be the telephone game where I said something to someone and then it trickles down and it's a completely different thing. So
Yep.
talk to if you have a problem, like, there's a book, I think it's called like Candid or Radical Candor, maybe. It's just about like just having the talk, right?
Radical. I wrote that down. Okay, so let's segue into emotions, right? So I'm really big on this idea of sticking to the truth or sticking to the facts versus letting your emotions sway you back and forth, right? And I think this is a perfect example or a perfect opportunity for people to really start to understand what their internal dialogue is really telling them, right? Especially whenever you've had everything else taken away from you. Really, all you have that's a little dramatic. You've had a lot of things taken away from you.
Yeah.
One of the things that you control, that I feel like you can control, is your mindset around things. And I think you want to talk about that. Is there something that is there a way that you coach people around that when it comes
Yeah,
to
I think a lot of it is just slowing down and thinking of yourself as someone else. Like, if I'm watching you make decisions, it's easy for me to say, why is he doing that? So you have to do that to yourself. You have to almost have like this out of body experience where you're watching how you're acting and you're saying, why the heck am I doing that? Like, that doesn't make sense. And you know, the word emotional is like controversial for some reason. Everything is emotional, but if you're being emotional, like, you're not in the right mindset to make a good informed decision. I think slowing down a little bit, looking at yourself as somebody else, thinking like episodic thinking, like thinking of yourself in the future, is the thing you're doing right now setting you up for where you want to be, or is it bringing you backwards? And then after you do that, you're just like, all right, that makes sense. I'm okay. I don't have to do that thing that I was about to do, which in this case is either drinking, eating foods that you shouldn't, eating a little bit more food, sitting on the couch when you should do at-home workout. So there's a lot of things that could get you to where you want to be that you just have to recognize.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think so. What you just said is a great illustration, or maybe an illustration. Let's use that word, which is getting people to respond instead of react.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you used a word, episodic thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never heard that, but I wrote it down. So.
Yeah. So like think about, like I want to write this book, right? If I'm being lazy about it, it's never going to happen. So what can help me do it is think of like a year from now, me holding this thing, thinking about like who has it, who's better because of it. So when I can picture that, I'm like, holy crap, like I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. And so have you ever heard so this makes me think of another term, which is called microtask, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you were to look at I think a lot of times people are looking at their day right now, especially we got people that are out of work.
Yep.
Their schedule is crazy. Some of us are doing homeschool for our children. And if you look at your day, you're like, this is so overwhelming. I don't know when to do what. But if you actually schedule your day and say, okay, the sun rises at 7 a.m., sun sets at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., and then I have 3 meals throughout the day, then all of a sudden you've started to create a schedule for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you can put your task in and fill in your day. Well, then you have these micro tasks throughout the day, and it makes it easier for people to digest, no pun intended. But it's way easier for people to really, I think, attack the day would be.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just messing around on the internet. You're doing other stuff, and that's me. If I don't plan my stuff out, I'm just like, where did the day go? And I'm disappointed that I didn't finish certain tasks, but I didn't set myself up to finish them. So put them on a calendar, put them on a thing. Like I have this, like we made this like the habit tracker thing. I have some things on this that every day I have to check them off.
Yep.
And, in a month, I'm going to be like, cool. Because I did it every day. I have these things that I want.
Look how much you get done too. And there's obviously we're rewarded for completing tasks, right? Yeah. So like, if people can't connect to that, so just think about any time if you hit a PR, if you do something really cool, there's this signal that you get a little bit of dopamine. Your body's like, attaboy, good job. And so I think if people will take that tool and start writing things down, and as they come to them, so like yesterday, I had something in my schedule that I was supposed to do at 3:30. I ended up doing it like 12:30. And in my mind, I was like, oh man, that's freaking awesome. I'm ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule, right? Yeah. And so it's just kind of cool. But anyways, I think now this is my philosophy on life. And this can kind of sum it up. But I think in 5 years, we're going to look back on this time and be grateful for this time. The people that are able to get something out of it, because we are able to slow down, and we are able to do the episodic thinking. And I think now is like a great time for people to learn how to have a vision for their life or a vision for their business. I've actually been thinking about rewriting my vision for our business because it may change. Like it may change significantly.
Crazy. And there's like a lot of, they say this in business now, I keep seeing it. It's like, don't let a recession go to waste. And it's like, make the best out of what's going on. And for us, it's like, we're interacting with the community more. We're working better together on certain projects that we had on the back burner. There's all kinds of things we're going to come out of this better off. And that's unfortunately not something everyone can say. Some businesses are just, like the restaurant industry is just rocked, It's tough, man.
Yeah, it really is. We've been in the restaurant space for 15 years or so out of the last 18 years. And, we just sold our other restaurant January the 28th. And it's been interesting emotionally because you know what they're going through, and any of the restaurant owners that we have here at the facility too, you know that they're struggling, and it's tough, man. It's really tough whenever you've been in that space and you see what people are going through. But I do think it's going to give people the opportunity to look at their business model and see where they can go and scale their business in other directions. Right. So just in case something like this happens again.
Right. A lot of them might start pumping out more takeout stuff. There might be an entire, and this is, let's like knock on wood. Hopefully this isn't a thing that happens all the time.
Right.
But you should be able to adapt quickly. And I think a lot of businesses are learning, like, they're like, oh, you can't work from home. We need everybody in the office. And then they're like, oh crap. Well, you can work from home,
Right.
and here's proof. And that might save businesses a ton of money. Like, I mean, we have a really small office, but I mean, it's kind of irrelevant. We don't need it.
Right.
So I think that's the case for a lot of businesses. They're going to start seeing like what they can do differently.
Yeah, and I think that goes for people too. And I think people are going to see, where their discretionary income goes and what's, do I really need? So one of the things that happened to me this week, and I didn't realize I had signed up for the Audible account that I have. For
Mm.
some reason, I thought it was free. Well, it's $14.95 a month.
Yeah, I got to check mine because I might be with you on that.
Dude, I'm telling you, because like I kept getting these credits and like they were sending me these credits. I'm like, man, they just must really love me, or maybe it's because Natalie does so much through Amazon or whatever. And I was like, they just keep giving me these books or giving me the credits for these books. And I was sharing that with a friend, and she was like, no, you're getting charged like $16 a month. I was
I
like,
have to check mine.
and I was blown away. So I ended my subscription to Audible this week. But anyways, it's just one of those things where this is going to give you time to look at those things, right? And we want people to know, like, we want to be a fitness resource for people, but only if it fits within your budget, right? Like, super important for us. And my dad was I mean, he is so disciplined around finance.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being 12 years old and him bringing me into the office and him showing me how to balance a checkbook and him showing me how to pay all your bills at one time. He taught me how to tithe. Like, I don't know, man. And so obviously I carried those principles with me throughout the rest of my life. And so this is going to be a great time for that. If people are not already learning how to budget and using some of these, I've heard Dave Ramsey's name come up a good bit over the last couple of weeks. And I just think that now is the time to really like like if you have a very disciplined nutrition protocol, then that should carry over into other, or it can carry into other areas of your life.
Yeah.
Or whether that's what
I think the money and food thing it's like this, it's the same behaviors. And I've joked, and I'm pretty certain I will do it one day, is because my background is in banking and personal finance, is like trying to duplicate what we did with Stronger You for that side too. And having like CPAs and financial advisors or something, like, to help people with their finances, because it's the same behaviors. People, they all want it now. They don't think about the future. They get in over their head making purchases that they might not want to. It's the same as eating like all the snack foods, So helping people with that stuff it's very similar. A lot of overlaps.
Well, just as a side note, if you ever do something like that and you need, you want somebody to help coach or do something like that, I would be super passionate about that. That would be fantastic. All right. So the big elephant in the room always is, I drink alcohol, Mike, because it reduces my stress. It allows me to sleep better. I'm being very sarcastic, by the way. I'll talk to you a little bit about my alcohol experience. But let's talk about the big elephant in the room. It always is. It drives me bananas to hear people talk about the relationship with alcohol. Let's discuss it. Let's dive in.
So first, I think a lot of people do have alcohol problems that they do not even know they have. I see a lot of things like, I need alcohol after this. My kids make me drink. I can't go out and not drink. Like, these are signals of something going on that I think should be at least acknowledged. And that is kind of an uncomfortable thing. And, we have someone on our team. I don't want to name them in case they don't want to talk about it. They have talked about it openly, but they struggled a little bit, and they finally realized, like, holy crap, like, it's not really a hobby. It was kind of a dependency. And it's become so normalized that, like, just getting drunk and drinking it's just okay. And it affects like so many things. You sleep worse. you're more hungry. You're usually drinking in an environment that doesn't support like traditional like diet foods. You don't recover as well. You get dehydrated. Those calories aren't metabolized the same as like regular calories. So it's like, think of the cost, like complete holistic view of alcohol. Like, what is it doing? It is, don't get me wrong, a couple drinks here and there, totally fine. But if you're drinking every single day, if you're drinking 5, 6, 7 drinks every weekend, like this stuff is affecting you and you might not even realize it until you stop it or reduce it.
You made me think about terms. So my microeconomics class, we talked about opportunity costs.
Yeah.
Right? So you remember like choosing one thing over another, there's always this opportunity cost, right? And then based off of your individual needs, individual goals, the story that you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. That's everything is about that. Everything. It's the opportunity cost of the decision of, with alcohol, with like, okay, I have 30 carbs left. Can I eat gummy bears or can I eat an apple? It's like, what was probably the better idea, but sometimes the other option is the correct one at that moment. So.
Yeah. And to keep it. Yeah. So just think about what he was just saying too. Can I fit this in? Is there a way that I could just fit this one in? Right. Fit this drink in, right? That meets my carb number. There's no nutritional density to it, but at least, I got it. I got it in my carb number. Right.
Yeah.
So let's see here in terms of alcohol. Okay. So I think alcohol is an interesting one, right? For number one, I think in terms of decision-making, and to bring this back to conflict resolution, decision-making, I think it makes people more impulsive, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
I also think it inhibits proper sleep architecture. Yep. So that alone is going to make you more impulsive the next day.
Double whammy. It's a double whammy. This gets me so excited because everything is about setting yourself up to make better decisions. And it starts with sleep. And if that's not there and your hunger hormones are all out of whack, and then you drink, man, it's already hard to say no in this environment. We have to tip the scales in our favor. Again, no pun intended.
Yes, 100%. So did you do an interview with James Clear? Didn't you?
Yeah, he was on our, he did a live with us in our group.
So I think this is a great place to talk about habit stacking for people. And so I'm just having some free association. So let me mention this before we get into that. So I drank alcohol from the time I was 16, 17 till I was 27. I was a bartender. I was a DJ. Like I partied hard.
You were in the mix. Yeah.
Yes. And so one of the things that I noticed, and we'll talk about emotions and we'll talk about dependencies for just a second, because I think it's important. One of the things that I noticed whenever I started to try to like make better decisions was I was very lucky in terms of I didn't have a chemical dependency on the drugs and the alcohol.
Right.
I had an emotional dependency to the person that I was when I did that stuff. So me making the decisions to not engage in those behaviors created some insecurities for me. Like when I started going to the parties, I actually went to a big Christmas party this past year without my wife, and there was lots of alcohol. It was a very interesting scenario for me because I had never been in that environment without Natalie.
Oh yeah.
So this is where people have to really, like, you have to have this vision for who you want to become or who you want to be, because it becomes so important in times like that, right? But just to finish that off, I do think people need to understand, like, if you're drinking or if you're drinking alcohol and you are eating foods that are bad for you, then I think most people need to understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is what type of dependency is it? Because I think a lot of times, especially when it relates to alcohol, and people want you to, like, if you think you have a problem, I'm not a psychiatrist by any means, and I'm not a physician, but I think people need to understand, is it an emotional dependency? Is it a physical dependency? Is it something they just started? Is it a bad habit that they've gotten into? Because if they just go and try to get help, but they go and get help, but it's an external help, if that makes sense. It's not internal. They're not figuring out why they were doing the things that they were doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's like if somebody signs up with us for 12 weeks and they white knuckle it, and then they get awesome results, and then they leave, and then it's like they go backwards. It's like, well, because you just got the external help. You didn't think about internally why you're doing things. And it's the same thing. Like with the drinking, like I was the same. I would go out every weekend. I would drink a lot of drinks. I would have fun. I would let loose. And a lot of it was because like being in those environments and not drinking is weird. And you start getting insecure and you're like, who's looking at me? Drinking just makes it like a little less stressful. And it's like, maybe if you were, or we all were just more secure with who we were, we wouldn't need the alcohol to kind of put a mask on ourselves. It's deep stuff, man, but I get it. I don't like, when I stop drinking so much, I don't like going to the parties or the bars and all that. Like, I'd rather just chill out,
Yeah. And I think you put a perfect word to it, which is the security, right? Yep. And I think people need to really think about it, especially right now. Like, where does your security come from? Right? Like, what is it that you are embracing so that you can present the best version of you? And that's something that that I've tried to really talk to people about over the last 2 years or so, because I started to see this trend. People would come to the gym, and you see it too. I mean, look how many people you guys have had the opportunity to work with. Yeah. But, whenever you see people coming in the gym and they have results and then they quit, it's like, wait a minute, you lost 10 or 15 pounds. Why did you quit? Right?
It's going to come back. Wait. Yeah.
Like, what was it that you were looking for, Yeah. So I think people really need to think about and connect their why, right? I know that's like some philosophical thing that people probably don't like to think about, but
I like it though. I like thinking like that.
Yeah. So the book, have you read Man's Search for Meaning?
No.
Viktor Frankl.
I haven't read that. No.
So he was in Auschwitz, and he survived, and he was a therapist, and he ended up coming up with his own line of therapy. It's called logotherapy. But one of the things that he said is if a man's why is deep enough, he can navigate anyhow, right? Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you go through. If you know why you're doing it and you're connected to that thing, then you're going to make it. And I do think that's probably a good framework for people to look from. Like, there are people that have survived like Holocaust, right? And survived being a POW, and survived being lost at sea. And there's so many things that people have gone through. Obviously, we've had some of our connections taken away from us, and some of our habits have altered a little bit, but we still have like our families. We can still connect with them, and maybe it's a time to like really look at your behaviors and your habits and see how they're serving you.
Yeah, I think the reason you do something, it will lead you to the right decision or the wrong one. Like if someone's like, well, I just want to get abs. And I'm like, all right, well, why? And they're like, well, I would be happier. And it's like, all right, do you think you'll be happier? I don't know. Like I've seen a lot of people get abs and they weren't necessarily happier. That was like hitting the PR on a squat. It's cool at the moment, but then you're just like, all right, what's next? So you have to figure out why you're doing things. And a lot of people, like, they don't have that. They don't have the reason. And we have like one of our coaches, Chuck, who lost over 200 pounds and has kept it off for over 12 years. His reason why was he found out he was becoming a father. And he's like, I need to be around. And that's the thing that's like, if you don't do this, you might not be around. Or if you don't do this, you'll never know what potential you had. And that's crazy to me. Don't waste that. Like, try to figure out and do that thing you want to do for that reason you want to do it.
Yeah, and I think too, to bring it back full circle with the whole alcohol thing for me, and I don't know what your perspective has been or is now. I have a good idea after you shared, but for me, I spent those 10 to 12 years, I drank pretty consistently Monday through Friday and Saturday. And now that I've been sober I drank Valentine's Day in 2018, I think. And that was, or Valentine's weekend. And that was the last time that I have actually was intoxicated. And it was so terrible that I was like, no wonder I don't do this. I will never do this ever again. Yeah. So what I'm saying is you don't know how good sobriety is until you have lived it for quite some time. And I think the same thing can maybe be said about discipline around food behaviors as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think people, like, they don't know how bad they might be feeling until they feel good. Like the person that's been carrying 40, 50, 60 extra pounds, when they lose that, they're like, oh my God, I cannot believe how much better I feel. They just became accustomed to not feeling very good. And that was always normal.
Do you want to mention, so I think we both read Atomic Habits. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you took from the book that you started applying to your life to make it?
Yeah. So I think, and Mike Gillespie talked about it in our group yesterday. I think was it anchoring, like something you do every single day that kind of starts the process.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like, I'll do something similar to him. Like I'll have my like fiber shake in the morning and I'll know that that's my thing, or I'll write like, and Jeb, our coach, does that too. Like the first thing we do is like, we write something. So it's just like, if we do that, we get that small win. Like, how you said you accomplished that thing a little earlier, you get the dopamine and you're like, heck yeah, I'm going to ride the wave. Yeah. So doing that thing that makes you feel really good and kind of sets the tone is huge for me.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, I mean, obviously I have my first hour of my day is scripted, right? Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And
yeah. So I get the impression you're like super structured. Yeah.
We are.
I'm kind of like, I might appear to have it all together at times, but I'm like all over the place too. There's just a few things that I nail.
No. Well, and so what's crazy is, I mean, that's me to a T, but my wife is also like that. And so like we have very good structure, but we also have very good communication. And so it works really well. Yeah. I think if you don't have that, then I think you would just drive each other nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're pretty structured. And it, and I think again, I think what's important for people to understand is I hope that they can take this and think of some tools that they can apply to their own life, because having someone, looking at their, like having a schedule for their list of all things may overwhelm certain people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Don't have too much. That's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people are like, they'll take this habit tracker or they'll make a schedule and they'll put like 20 things on it. And it's like, you have to find, and I posted about this the other day in our group, like the Goldilocks zone. Like, find things that you can actually accomplish. Yep. Because if you make it too difficult, you're just going to get discouraged when you can't do it. So find things that you can do, get that dopamine hit, get the confidence that you can do things, and then things just start working out, man.
I love it. All right, so we can end it here, but let's give people 2 to 3 things that you think and that is working for your folks right now.
Focus on sleep, first of all. Find time somewhere, on the back end, on the front end. Just try to get a little bit more sleep. Now, if you're getting 7 or 8 hours, that's probably great. You probably don't need any more. Another thing is, like, if you know you have trouble with certain foods, try not to bring them into your world, because most people are not moderators. Most people are abstainers. And if you if you accept that some things just don't work for you, the quicker you get them out of there, the better you'll be. Another thing is, if you are feeling some sort of craving, I want you to think of it as like a small fire. If you don't extinguish that fire and tell yourself the answer is no, that fire will keep growing and you're never going to stop thinking of doing that thing. So for me, a lot of times, I use this example quite often. If I'm sitting on the couch at night and I get this urge to go eat peanut butter and jelly, if I don't tell myself, hey, Mike, the answer is no, move on, watch the TV, ignore the food, that spark or that little fire will keep growing, and I'll keep getting reminded that I want to eat. So I just put it out. I think in my head, the answer is no. I imagine it sounds silly, like a little fire extinguisher, just puts it out. Done. Over.
But I love that. I love that illustration though. And man, I love that. I hope Natalie watches this video, because I think that's one of the things that could be super helpful for her.
Yeah. I think we mess up a little bit because we give ourselves permission. We use it as an option. If you're trying to do a certain thing, then you don't have options. You just have to do those things. For me, the big elephant in the room for me is this book. It's a pain in the butt. But if I don't do it, then I don't get it. No one else gets it. So I have to just do it. And there is no option to skip it. It's just, you just do it.
I love it. There is no other option, right?
Yeah.
I remember whenever I was kind of starting the gym 10 years ago, I was like, I burned the boats. There was no other option. It had to get done. It was going to get done one way or the other. I was going to die trying. And so
I think people need to know they have control. They are better at this than they give themselves credit. They just have to practice it.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. And I think, people have to figure out how they take their mentality and the lens in which they view their life and figure out how they can have the most success.
Right.
And instead of just saying, oh, we've got this problem. I don't really know how to handle it. I'm down in the dumps. Everybody's down in the dumps. I'm just going to eat or I'm going to drink. And I think if people will isolate themselves sometimes and have that conversation with themselves,
right,
and then find a person that they respect, trust, a coach, and say, listen, I was thinking about this thing. Give me some feedback. What do you think?
Yeah. Everyone just look at yourself like you're not yourself. The decisions are easier. Like we all have that friend that does crazy stuff and we're like, dude, why are you doing that? Like, why are you dating those people again? Why are you doing this? Why are you climbing that mountain like with no support? Like, you're crazy. But then we do things ourselves and we can't acknowledge it. So we have to look at ourselves like we're not ourselves. And then we'll be like, come on, man, don't do that. Like, makes sense.
And I love that. I love the altering the subjective reality. I think that's so important for people. That needs to be a practice. If you want to become, if there's something that you want to achieve in your life, like, you need to be able to look at your behaviors and your habits and see how they are or are not congruent with that vision that you have for yourself.
It's emotional intelligence. Like, that's like a really big topic that I think is like gaining a lot of traction right now.
Yeah.
It's not like book smarts. It's like your self-awareness and how you view the world. Like, having emotional intelligence that's like the it factor, they're saying, for every industry, every person.
Natalie and I were having a conversation about that particular term the other night.
Yep.
And it's just very interesting what's going on in the world right now. And you will, I think you will, like you said, I hadn't, so I've got a mentor of mine that's also a client, that him and I were having that conversation not too long ago. And it's very interesting. You're about the third person that I've actually heard it from. And I'd never really heard that term until it was about a month and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
So it is very interesting how either you can or cannot see your own faults.
Yeah.
Right.
Just self-awareness. I mean,
That's right.
that's the biggest thing I think for like dieters that we work with is like, if you're not going to acknowledge that there's a problem, if you can't see that you're doing something wrong, then we can't get to step 2. I had a conversation yesterday. Someone was inquiring, wanted to sign up, didn't believe in calories, just didn't believe calories were the reason. And I said, if we can't get to step 2, if I can't get you to believe me, I don't know what I can do, but I don't know if we're for you. And that's like sad because I wanted to help this person so bad, but it was everything else. It was carbs, it was sugar, it was insulin, it was hormones. It's like, maybe it's too many calories somewhere. Let's acknowledge that and fix it.
Yeah. And sometimes the solution can be so simple, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reframe of that for people, I think for our clients and just for people in general is so important. Like sometimes you just have to like make it a little more simple so that you can.
Lowest hanging fruit, you know?
What was that? What was that?
The lowest hanging fruit. Grab that first. Yeah.
That's right. Always.
Yep.
Always. Listen, man, I could do this a lot. So
yeah.
I'll let people like, maybe they can watch it. And then if they have any questions, if they want some more specific stuff, maybe we can hop back on.
Yeah, man, I'm always down.
Well, I really appreciate your help. I appreciate your support. If there's anything that we can do for you guys, obviously we're here. I know you guys are still, I know Natalie's still working with Tanner. And
yeah, I mean, thank you guys. If you guys have people that need nutrition help, we're happy to help. So.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, listen, thanks for everything. Hey, as they say, this too will pass, and I think our businesses will be better because of it. So.
Oh yeah. But thank you, Eric. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, man. Bye. Okay.